Welcome to On the Couch, the podcast where real conversations meet real change. Pull up a seat, get comfortable, and join us as we dive deep into the conversations that matter most to Black and Brown communities. Hosted by Dr. Diamond and an incredible lineup of co-hosts, On the Couch brings you raw, insightful, and empowering discussions, from mental health and wellness to entrepreneurship, life insurance, healthcare, and everything in between. Our mission is simple: to educate, uplift, and create space for conversations that need to be heard. Whether you're here for practical advice, motivation, or just a dose of inspiration, you've come to the right place. So sit back, relax, and let's talk about the things that shape our lives, our futures, and our communities. This is On the Couch, where we keep it real, keep it relevant, and keep it moving. Let's get started.
Good morning, everyone. It's Saturday. Welcome to On the Couch, a podcast show with, of course, Dr. Diamond and my co-host. I'm battling with laryngitis right now, so it's not going to stop me from doing my show. Other than that, we're going to bring on my fabulous co-hosts so they can, help me through this today. But before I bring them on, this is going to be an exciting show. We're going to welcome Michael A. Wiggins, who is into his leadership. He's a strategist. He's a certified coach and a community activist. So when we get the opportunity, we will be speaking with him today. So he'll be joining us in a little bit. So we are charged and ready to go to hear what it's like, how he started and where he is now. So before we do that, let me bring on my co-host. We got Mark waiting in the wings here. Good morning, Mark. How you doing?
Doing good. Yeah.
Toya is there, but I don't see her face yet.
Good morning, everyone. I'm in transit, double duty, but this is something that we have been planting, and guess what? He's here.
Yes. And yes, thank you for joining us, in double duty, as we all do. Mark is on double duty. I'm the one only on single duty today. So I get it.
Everybody doing double duty. We got the quilters over here. So we got our African-American quilters. A gentleman thought we were having a dance with the youth, and I thought that there might be taking place as well, but I think that actually starts next week. And then we've got, of course, the quilts are amazing. They're actually going to take the quilts down, except for maybe the quilt that honors the Heritage Center itself. And then we've got the jazz band practicing downstairs. So we've got things happening here at the Cultural Arts Center and all along those lines. So we've actually got our first concert that'll be on not this coming Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, and that'll be a harpist who I'm not that familiar with, but I'll be learning about her as she gets ready to come into the area, and that'll be Brandy Younger, because we're going to do a full season here in this area and everything like that. But she is a celebrated jazz artist and is a harpist, composer, and a band leader. So looking forward to hearing more about what she's got going on, as apparently she's on the harp faculty at NYU. So she's up there in your neck of the woods and everything like that. And she's worked with artists like Beyonce, Common, and Lauryn Hill. So she'll be here on the 21st. We've got Branford Marcellus coming as part of this season, and Taisha Coates will be on part of the dialogue series, because there'll be a speaker series as well that'll also feature Melissa Harris Perry. So we've got some amazing things happening at this center, and that's just a few of the artists. I think my a longtime acquaintance, Yazara, will be here, and she's a neo soul singer as well. So we got some great folks that are coming, including the illustrator Keith Knight, who is an African-American illustrator. So looking forward to some of these folks coming, and might even have to direct them to come on our podcast at some point or another as well. Yes. A lot of great things happening, and looking forward to hearing Brandy Younger, who's teaching up there in New York and teaching these young folks how to play the harp.
I think that is awesome. And what's going on with your podcast, Mark? Give us some stuff. What's happening there?
We've got a lot of things going on. I'm a part of the network, Pod TV, and everything, but my personal show is the online dinner party. And of course, I've got the one going with your husband, Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. We've been on hiatus, but we're going to come back on the 19th and do our next episode and everything like that. And then the online dinner party. This past week, I had some amazing artists. Had a gentleman from Canada who was a life coach and everything like that, but he takes it as if you were being coached in a coffee shop and everything like that. So he tries to take it as a coaching people that might not be thinking that they would be getting that kind of life coaching and business coaching, like might be in some non-traditional jobs and everything like that. So he was a fascinating guest. And then I had two musicians, John Prince, if I remember his name correctly, as well as Will, and Will is a musician. They're both kind of like in that jazz tradition, jazz blues tradition. And then I had Raphael on, who is a filmmaker who's worked on a film. Actually, one of the films is about one of the quotas, and then there's a film about Brother Youssef, who is a legendary jazz performer here in this area, but came here from New York, and he actually helped bring some of the Black Muslim culture down here as well. So it was great having John Prince, Raphael, who was the filmmaker, as well as Will McBride. Will McBride was the other musician that was on as well. So a lot of things been happening here and always keeping busy. And of course, I'm back to work at Measurement, which means grading the little kitties and everything like that. So this is actually a pilot project, I think is what we're calling it, or something like that. But keeping busy and keeping engaged. And of course, I'm hoping that my friend, not Dean, but my friend Captain is going to be bringing back the Road to the Apollo, because we didn't do one last year. Last year we did a go-go concert instead. We had two go-go bands and also a tribute band to Frankie Beverly and everything like that. So we had Trouble Funk. We had the all-girls group out of DC, and I'm trying to think of their name. And then it was the band that is like a Frankie Beverly tribute band. And that was back in, I think that was spring of last year, like around Mother's Day and everything like that. So I did ask him whether we were going to be doing the Road to the Apollo, since we didn't do one in 2025. And he's like, yeah, I think we're going to do a few shows. So I'm hoping that'll be the case, and I'll find out more as to when that'll be.
Sounds good. And Miss Toya, I know you've been doing things on the Butterfly Room. Let our fans know how things are going on the Butterfly Room.
Hello, guys. I'm just parking right now, but thank you so much. It's just been a blessing that, again, as we stated, as women, we have to water each other. And you here gave me the wings to do that. We have Kylie here. We're doing some time with her auntie. But again, this is our future, and sometimes double duty makes sense. And that's really what I'm doing now. As a person who was a cycle breaker and went through things in my life, I'm able to find a space. Because as a child growing up with my mom at a young age, I had to do what I had to do. And that's what I did, retreat. So now as mental health professional, as you know, and an empath, we actually can see what is needed. However, folks are not ready to receive the truth. But I've learned now through me persevering through life that it can be done. It can be done. And I just know that listening to the conversations that we have here on the couch, that I know I'm not alone. And some of the guests that we have evoked some of that change and growth in me. And I just know that now, as I say, I got my grand architect, Father God, and my broke best friend. And I got my little niece here. Say hi, Kylie. And
hi.
Kylie on the show, because, there's some things that happen in school as far as bullies and things. So we're going to be healing. And I'm just grateful for all of this. And today, I just know that with the leadership, we all go to a point where we're at a crossroads. And what do we do? And sometimes, as Kiara Shear said, don't let nobody speak for me. So now that I'm finally speaking for myself, folks are not ready for that. As you said, thank you for sharing on my show. You said that you didn't speak. You were quiet. And then it's ironic that we're both Leos. And I never really studied astrology, but as I embark on my dissertation, when I did my thesis, I did a process analysis. That's what I did. And I'm always researching, and people don't understand. I love numbers. 100. A sample of 10% would be 10. So I'm always doing mental math, visual math, and that's something that I'm inspiring for. So thank you, Dr. Diamond, for allowing me to have a moment. But here, we have watered one another. And I just say that through God's design. I said, Leos on the couch. And we've seen a lot of people on our couches, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And through HIPAA and, not talking. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I was in the world. But now I'm finally putting it together. I said, well, God must have knew what he had. When he made me, he said, my daughter, I'm going to give you the voice finally to speak up. And guess what? Dr. Diamond, you finally spoke up, right?
That's right.
on the board.
That's right.
That's all. So, hey, look at Dean coming on in, Geronimo.
Hey, good people, how y'all doing?
Okay, another Leo. We got 3 Leos and we got 75% of Leo energy on this call. That's all I'm saying. Guys,
Yeah,
introduce me to y'all. I literally have a big sister and a big brother, and I really love all of y'all. And Mark is, that's your partner over there. He be pulling me in, having me question my stability. Mark.
Let's do them one at a time. Okay.
Goodness.
Yeah,
right.
Causing trouble. I'm that time before the Leos and everything like that. But it's okay. It's all right to have some cancer blood in the flow as well.
Well, thank you for your sign. Now I got to do some research on cancer because I've never been a zodiac person, but now I'm just understanding, folks who are empaths, folks who believe in a higher power and how you put that all into your everyday life. Because we really don't know. My pastor treats the whole man. And I appreciate that in this journey. And, everything happens by design. And this right here today is by design.
Oh, yeah. Totally by design. Hey,
That's right.
April, I do see the Dean's on there. I can't wait to have those conversations with him on the 19th when we come back with Straight Talk with Dean and Mark and all along those lines. Can't wait to hear him have that lovely saying of his from New Jersey to North Carolina and everything along those lines. So looking forward to that. In that space, he says it much better than I do and everything like that. But I was I produce a lot of different shows for Pod TV, and one of those shows is a show that Coco McMillan does. She was a past musician for Gerald Levert and all along those lines. She had a guest on that was truly amazing. She had a guest on. Well, actually, had a couple of musicians on, but she had a guest on. I think she was from the Atlanta area, if I remember correctly. But she had a program for at-risk youth and everything like that, and had definitely raised a lot of money and everything along those lines. But a lot of that funding was cut and everything like that. So she's now in the middle of a dollar pledge and trying to get some more grant funding because he had found some grant funding, had done a good job of searching for grants, gotten the grants and everything like that. But with this madness we've got in terms of things being cut out, whether it's the Corporation of Public Broadcasting dissolving or whether it's some of these grants that don't exist anymore and stuff like that, people are having to be creative in the ways that they are raising money in order to stay alive and all along those lines. So these are some difficult times in that sense and all along that kind of way, because we got some folks out there that are cutting left and right, and I'm sure Dean can relate to that even in the prison system and everything like that, because they're just cutting stuff that is much needed and all along those lines, whether it's rehabilitation programs or a number of other things.
Yes. So just to shift gears for a minute. So we recently had a big tragedy, with this young lady that was actually shot in the face by ICE. Yeah. And again, this is stuff that affects our community. So I was wondering, Mark and Dean and Toya, what have you been feeling when you saw this occur? And what are your thoughts behind the ICE being in the community, just ripping people from their homes? And what the trauma that is causing?
Oh, it's definitely causing some serious trauma because, there's a lot of these people that are not being trained in law enforcement. And I do have friends and family that are in law enforcement don't know how to handle it and all in that space. And I'm not saying that even law enforcement knows how to handle all of these situations as well. But a lot of these folks that are coming in are going for the dollar and going for the, some of them are macho folks, or at least they think they're macho, so they're doing it in that space and everything like that. I actually saw an interesting post. There was because they're trying to blame the victim in my mind because they were saying that she was maybe trying to run over the officer and everything like that. But then I've seen people that have said the car and the wheels were turning in the exact opposite direction, so that's not even possible that she would have been doing that and everything like that. But I can only imagine the trauma. You talk about trauma that you would have to go through if you know that your folks are going to be involved in protesting against ICE and everything like that, or just against some of the things that are out there, and then 3 bullets, and then that person is no longer here on the planet and everything like that, because it was 3 shots that were definitely fired, and it sounds like the person is still on the force. But I just actually saw a documentary that was very similar, and that was in Atlanta and everything, where they killed a gentleman that was living in the forest that they were going to turn into like a cop training center and everything like that, and he was brutally killed. He went by the nickname of Turtle, or maybe it was Little Turtle or something like that, but he was also slain. So it seems like some of these folks are getting a little too carried away. Now, given they were doing some property damage, and we do know that sometimes protesters will do property damage, whether it's killing a John Deere tractor or whether it's killing some other things. But I don't think there had been any violence toward the people. There had been more violence toward the machinery and the property. And we even saw that, I think, when the old riots back in Watts, when a lot of buildings were destroyed and stores and looting was going on. But that doesn't, I don't think, justify what was going on by these officers. And I've got friends that are GBI officers, and you know, in this case, it sounds like it might have been a shoot to kill kind of situation. And I don't know that it justified that, even her being in the truck, in the car. But Dean, you might have a better idea as you worked in law enforcement.
You know what? I'm going to say some things could have been done differently.
Mhm.
And, you know, you can point the finger either way.
Right.
Should she have pulled off? Maybe not. But for an individual who is in a position where they have to use their brain, they should be anyway, there's a different way to handle that. Let her pull off, get the tags, go get her later. You know what I mean? Nobody cares that you got dragged before. That's your stupid train of thought for standing in front of yet another car. You know what I mean? So also, and the people don't really think of this, but the leniency of rules and having to answer to things that you do, things have gotten so lax that now individuals are able to say, oh, I was in fear for my life. I think most of us are when we walk out our front door. So when you try to use that as an excuse, maybe you shouldn't have taken that job. If you're scared like that, go home. Go work at Walmart or somewhere in the back stocking boxes where the fear won't be so great. But unfortunately, we're in that situation now, we are starting to see that it's just not us melanated people. They taking anybody out. And the rules and the restrictions need to come back, where when you do something like that, you're stuck to the wall. Do you want to get stuck to the wall? Do you want to think your way through this so that you can go home and everybody else can too? One day they may get back to that. Right now, everybody's on we don't want to get sued. They have rights and all of this. But what right does an individual have to stand in front of your car and then triple tap? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's sad, but unfortunately, that's the culture that's happening right now. Like I said, hopefully it'll go back to when rules meant something, when regulations meant something. No matter who you are, you violate those, you pay the penalty.
Exactly. Toya, what about you?
Yes, I was listening. We were just checking in. I agree with what Dean said as far as what we're doing. Basically, you have a action, and then there's going to be a reaction. So right now, it seems to me, based on what we are saying, it was a reaction. It wasn't well thought of, and I think that sometimes we need to definitely pause before we respond to something. And here, it's a tragic situation, and I think that this is something that we continue to discuss on an ongoing basis. So that means when you have something that's in front of you, you have to take yourself in. And we don't do that. But sometimes the morals, whatever we have underneath us, it comes out. And that was indicative of what we just saw. So again, as individuals who are in this world, we have a lot going on. You have to check yourself. Check yourself. Because if you don't, as the saying said, if you don't check yourself, you're going to wreck yourself. And that's the only thing that I can think of. And as I get older and I accept the wisdom in my life, I know that now just because you're feeling a certain way does not mean that's what the answer is. So collect yourself. before you react.
Agreed. It's unfortunate that we continue to be put in a state where our lives can be taken at any moment. I also been following, in New York, because I'm from there, that a lot of people from New York are being taken into these jails and stuff for immigration. And you're just rolling up on people. So it almost make me feel like that we're way back into the 1800s where we have to show a pass to say this is who we are. But what are we supposed to do? Walk around with our birth certificates and say, hey, I'm a U.S. citizen? It's getting down to that. And also,
yeah, but not only that, but Dr. Diamond, the other thing that took place that is a lot of people are talking about is there was already people that were being grabbed and taken to countries that weren't even their home country,
Right.
and all along those lines. And now
Yeah.
we've got Medora that is actually sitting in jail along with his wife, and apparently they're in the same jail, or he's in the same jail as Sean Puffy Combs and everything like that. But
Wow.
there's this notion of where people are being stored, and I understand that he pleaded not guilty and is saying that he's still the leader of his country, and his vice president is still running it, even though the person that's in the White House is saying that we're going to be running it and we're going to be running the oil industry and a number of other things that don't make that much sense to me. But maybe y'all can help me make some sense about it and all along those lines. But it does seem like we've got some things that are very scary going on in the world, just in the sense that we can go grab some folks. And now he's talking about he wants to take Greenland and possibly do actions in Colombia and a number of other places. So our brothers to the south might be wondering what's next. I mean, I'm sure the people in Cuba and even Brazil are wondering if they're going to targets and everything like that. So there's a lot of things that are going on in the world that people are very much startled by and alarmed by. Like I said, he was grabbed about a week and a half ago and is apparently sitting there in those New York prisons, and we'll see what goes on with the trial. But I do know he pleaded not guilty and apparently hired a high-end attorney, as a lot of these folks will do. And apparently he's going before a 92-year-old judge that doesn't take a lot of BS, even though he's 92 and still on the bench and everything like that. But apparently he's not necessarily a friend of Trump. I think he might have been involved in the Wikipedia case or the WikiLeaks case and everything like that. So I don't think that the conclusion is automatic and everything like that. People think that it's just that he's going to get a life sentence or be in the prison, much like Noriega. But there are factors out there that we don't know what's going on, and who knows, he might even wind up back in his country and everything like that, depending on what kind of deals are made outside of the pocket.
Wow. Give me 1 second here.
Yeah.
I'm just corresponding with our guests here. So I think there was somewhat of a mix-up, but we will continue going on with our show.
Oh, yeah.
So I when you think about the Trump is rogue right now, and no one is stopping him. Now they're starting to see that he's still trying to invade Venezuela. So I'm just, all this all over some oil. And what's crazy about this is that where do you get the gall to think that you can run into another country and tell them what they can do, and then tell them that we're taking over your country? And that's that. It's like, wait a minute. Like, you can't be serious.
I think the man wants to be, and I don't know what Dean thinks, I think the man wants to be world emperor. I think that he's got notions of being Napoleon or being Genghis Khan or some of these other folks, because he's also said that he wants to go take over Greenland, even though Greenland right now is run by the Danish folks and everything like that. I actually was joking with folks earlier. I said that I figured out, and this, of course, would be just being a little bit sarcastic and joking and everything like that. I think the reason he wants Greenland is because Greenland is not that far from the North Pole. We all know that he was on Santa's naughty list and everything like that. So I think that he's really just trying to make a operation against Santa because he knows that Santa's got him on the naughty list.
You know what? When you got that little kid that never that needs that attention, and that becomes an adult boy, and that adult boy still needs that attention, and finagles their way into a position where now they have some type of perceived power, this happens.
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah,
and they put him back in office. And also, I think he think our military is just some plastic men and women that you can move around the board. It doesn't work. These are people's lives, and he's, acting like this is a game. You going into people's countries, and I fear for us as the United States that they're going to start retaliating against us soon.
And we saw that happen with 9/11 back in 2001, and that was not that long ago. I mean, that was like some 25 years ago, or almost 25 years ago, but it's fresh on many people's minds and all along those lines. But yeah, I fear that as well, that somebody might decide to retaliate and everything. But to your point, Dean, and everything, I'm thinking that he might have played maybe too many games of Risk, Monopoly, and some of the other board games that are out there, because that's what you do in Risk, is you go ahead and you try to take over the world and everything like that. If you remember that game, when it used to be a popular board game. So I'm thinking he might be thinking that there was too much of that connection to Risk, and that he's been playing Risk and Monopoly too much when he was young.
Yeah, I don't know. Marky hit the mute button. Yeah, but I just want to just say that just as an MCJROTC for 5 years of my life, I come from a military family. I was a staff sergeant when I left, only woman that did trick drill. So maybe that's where my candor comes out. But for me to decide not to do that, and I'm just being honest, I loved what my family did. They served the country, World War I, World War II, Korean War. My father also is a veteran. But one of the things for me, I said, I didn't do it because there was no baths. So I'm just being honest. I'm trying to make it cute about it. But for me to serve my country, and once I went into Paris Island for that week and I was in that mud as a woman, there's no bathtubs. So I'm just being honest with you. So that's, me being cute about it. But how can I serve my country when you have me as a woman and my body parts look different from a man, and you don't give me a bathtub to clean myself?
Right.
And so I just look at that. So for me, that's why I felt at the end of the day, I said, that's not for me. How can I serve my country? And now look where we are, how many decades later? And, there's no change. However, we're voluntold, as we know, when we volunteer. But when it comes to my freedom and my life and me putting it on the line, I'm just saying that's just not right. But on the flip side, if something happens, you'll help my family financially to a certain extent. So I just think that now this is a mockery of what we voted for. And again, I feel that whenever someone is feeling the way they want to feel, they just, okay, I'm going to throw these truths. But they are connected to families who need them. And as you know, with the SNAP, and I don't want to keep bringing up this SNAP. So then what happens if they go and serve for the country, and the next thing you know, those benefits that I'm supposed to have are no longer there? So let's just think about it. So that's where education is very important. So we have a choice and not get, be in a situation that we currently are in.
Exactly. So we have Coach Mike waiting in the wings. So I do want to introduce him to our listeners. And I'm telling you, my voice is bad, but you guys, you hang in there with me, okay? So Michael A. Wiggins, known to many as Coach Mike, is a certified coach, trainer, and speaker through the Maxwell Leadership Team. In 2022, he founded Progressive Traditions Leadership and Coaching to empower individuals and leaders through growth, clarity, and community. With over 25 years of experience in leadership, coaching, and instructional design, Coach Mike is passionate about helping people grow into the leaders they were created to be. And it's more to his story, and I want him to tell his story for how he went from being in the corporate world to becoming an entrepreneur, to helping others see their light and move forward and have the strength to say, you know what, I'm going to step out on faith and I'm going to step forward to, grab my dreams. So without further ado, we're going to bring on Coach Mike, and we thank him for joining us on the couch today. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, my friends. How are you doing today? How's everyone?
Good morning. You made it on here.
Listen, I made it. I made it. The devil was trying to stop it. You know what I mean? I'm looking at stuff and okay, all right, we good, but we know we here. We are
right.
here. It's about maintaining that positive attitude and that positive outlook and always looking to learn from every opportunity. So we are here. I'm happy to be here. How's everyone doing?
Pretty good. Thank you again for joining us on the couch today. We really appreciate you, making time for us, placing us in your schedule. So again, thank you so much. Thank you. I can't thank you enough. So we will start with you in your story. Could you begin from that corporate world and then how you embarked on becoming an entrepreneur instead of retiring?
Listen, all right. So that's a funny story. And I was listening to you read my bio of sorts, and my bio is ever changing. As I get more perspective on where I am and trying to understand my purpose, my bio changes. But that's a great question. I was in corporate America for almost 25 years. And corporate America was good to me. I raised my family, put my girls through school, and my wife and I, we were able to provide for ourselves, having everything we needed and a couple of things we wanted. So corporate America was good to me. And it came to a point, particularly once COVID hit, that shaped and reshaped everyone's lives, for better or for worse. It was a devastating time. And like most corporations and companies, they had decisions to make. So it was the end of 2021, where my company that I've worked for almost 25 years in various leadership capacities, and most recently as a professional coach, they decided that we were not going to be aligned any further. So here I was at the point in my life where I'm at a respectable, meaningful, middle-aged age. And I was at a crossroads where, okay, my value is no longer felt for whatever reason in my corporate status, which I appreciated in terms of everything that I provided. So now I was faced with what was next. Talked to my wife, obviously, and made some decisions, and we had some kumbaya moments. And we collectively decided that it was time for me to look at something else. I had given everything to corporate America with no regrets. Our family was in a situation where we weren't going to ever just roll over and die. So it was an opportunity presented for me to take some of those skill sets that I learned in corporate America for over 20 years. Some skill sets that I learned in other leadership capacities that I've had the honor of serving in. And instead of working for the company in terms of coaching people to do the standards of a corporation, I shifted and I became a professional coach, helping individuals to, number one, create their own standards and then help them to live by it. Same concept, some of the same skills, some of the same disciplines, but totally rewarding in a totally different fashion. I learned that for me, I realized that leadership is in two components. You have to first be able to lead yourself. That's a lot of things that we sometimes overlook. We kind of gloss over the responsibility and accountability for self-leadership. And then only after we've mastered that, do we have the ability to help others. So I went through that growth period, and I'm still going through that growth period. Now, almost 4 years later, I'm still going through that growth period of leading myself and in real time transferring those skills over to people that I'm able to help, aid, and assist. So that was my transition. It didn't come from a kumbaya moment where I wanted to go out and be bold and be proud. I'm going to do this for myself. I want to be self-employed. It didn't come that way. It came through some turmoil, through some strife, through some struggle. But thanks be to God, I had the opportunity and the vision to take a chance on myself. So that's where I'm at right now. And it's the most rewarding decision that I've ever made professionally. As rewarding it is, as scary, because it's a double-edged sword, right? But it's the best thing I've ever done. It is the best thing I've ever done.
As you were talking, Coach Mike, the first thing that came to my mind is that you are in some ways, and I'd love to hear your thoughts around this, a anomaly and everything like that. Because if you know the history of our ancestors and our grandparents and parents and all along those lines, many of those folks had jobs where they were in the same job for 25, 30 years and stayed in that job for until they got those gifts at the end and everything along those lines, whether that was a watch or whether that was a some cases a t-shirt or a trip or something along those lines and everything like that. But now in this modern age, we don't see that as much. Many people are going probably in about, I think the average maybe was a job or maybe two jobs back in our grandparents' age and everything like that. And now a lot of our folks that are in the younger generation, I know that Toya's out with some of her folks that are younger and everything when they get to be adults. And I don't have any kids of my own, but I do have my two nephews that are off to college. They may go through, even though I know what my nephews want to do, they may go through about 3 or 4 jobs and probably even 5 or 6 corporations. And I can identify in terms of being in a job for a number of years because I've actually worked at this cultural arts center probably for about 25 or 30 years, all along those lines, even though it's been different capacities, even while in the same corporation and everything like that. So I just wanted your take on that notion that a lot of people are surprised when they find somebody that has actually been in a job and stayed in a job for anywhere from more than 15 years and everything like that. So just wanted your thoughts around that.
You know, you said a lot, because that is absolutely true. If you look at today's time, people are shuffling jobs like they're playing cards. And that's just the culture we live in. And I think part of that is because there are reasons why my job let me go, right? There are reasons, and I contributed to some of those reasons. And as I reflect, that's why I said my story keeps changing, because the more I reflect, the more I can put some clarity behind what actually took place. It came a point in time where my job was no longer adding value to me, and I was equally no longer adding value to my job. Now, for people today, that occurrence happens frequently. Right. We live in a society where we feel like that work-life balance and things of that nature is at the top of our list. And if we're not finding that, we're dissatisfied. We're not willing to hang in there like we may have been 20, 30, 40 years ago, like the previous generation. We hung in there. You know, the objective was to find a good job that was paying you what you needed, and you hold on to that until you couldn't. And that mentality has changed. And I'm empowered by it. Although I didn't grow up in it, I'm empowered by it, because part of my objective is to say, listen, you're obligated to feel value for yourself. And if you value yourself, you're going to seek things that's going to add value to you. And if your job is not it, I'm not going to say quit, but I want to say we need to do some soul searching and find out what it is. Are you missing the mark? Are they missing the mark? Have you had that conversation about value add and value given? And those kind of things help connect the dots. It's funny because I did a leadership talk for Senator Troy Singleton back in October, and it was kind of a workforce mindset shift. Where I was talking to people who were in transition from different careers. Some were transitioning from corporate to self-employment. Some were jobs were phased out and they were trying to find the next station in their life. And they used me as a kind of a gap fill for talking. And I gave them 3 tips. First tip is you have to have a growth mindset. And that's something that's key. You have to have what I call an inner circle, meaning you're going to surround yourselves with people that have your best interest at heart, not friends, not associates, not family necessarily, but people that are going to compliment you and have your best interest at heart. And then the third point was that you have to be intentional. Growth mindset, inner circle, and intentional. Those 3 things will help you transition. So if you are in a period of your life where you're looking for something else because you're not being fulfilled, okay, I can understand that. It happened to me, not by my design, but it happened. So what did I do? How did I get to the point where I'm at now? And those three things, I had to have a growth mindset. I had to surround myself with an inner circle that was conducive for my growth. And it had to be intentional, meaning don't sit there and wait for it to happen. You have to go make it happen. So that's the tip that I tell the individuals now that are in a limbo, they're not satisfied. You need to understand why. Like, why are you not satisfied? Why are you not feeling valued? And why are you not giving value if that's the case? We gotta be honest with ourselves. So that's a great question. That's something that we all are faced with today. And those are some of my best people to talk to because I understand it. Listen, I'm not telling you something that I read about. I'm not telling you something that someone shared with me that I learned. I'm telling you something that I have experienced and that I am experiencing today. This is real life. It's real life. Great question, though.
Yes, thank you. And I want to piggyback on that before I go off camera, but just letting you know, I agree with you. Early in my career, I worked for a university behavioral health center. And what happened was I was providing services to people that I grew up with. I had to leave there. However, I had been applying for this job for years once I was working on my master's. So what ended up occurring is a friend of mine got me in there. So then one of the things I know that you have posted, because I'm in your community, it was this who you know. So I was able to come in for the job through the back door. From there, that's how I obtained my CADC. They said, you know what? Within 2 years, you need to do this. Now, mind you, I was a nursing major, got my master's at 23. My goal was to finish my my BSN, and then eventually an MSN. But what happened was being a child of an addict. So when I looked at that, I said, well, no, that's God design. And I can say that now today at 48. It was there for me, for God to show me what my parents were and who am I as a person. Never knew. So from there, I worked there, left. One of the psychiatrists said, Toya, come with me. I went to run a drug program in East Orange, but I had to leave. But then I got laid off from there. But I've always had a second job. I took a cut, a $15,000 cut. And I'm just the last time I'm going to say it publicly. It'll be in my memoir. However, what you're saying is spot on. I'm out here by myself. But then what happens, I was able to become the inaugural QA director for a mental health agency. And I've been in that position. So now at this point, I say, no, this is God's design. And now what you're saying, I'm reflecting on it and I'm going to put it to bed right now. It was meant for it to happen like that. I am no longer bitter about it because right then and there, I'm constantly creating programs for people. The pilot program that I created still exists. You know, certain things still exist. And now as the inaugural QA director, so now when I go into different arenas, people look at me and they judge me by who I am. No, you don't know my struggle. Let me talk about my Vita. So what I had to do now is said, you know what, Lord, let me put the pen down. Let me not say anything because I'm being prejudged by how I look. And so that's where this butterfly room is everyone here today has a piece that's going to help the Black and brown community. You should not judge anybody by how they looked. However, at 23, I obtained a master's. However, people look at me and say, this is what it is. So Coach Mike, you hit that spot on. So right now, what we need to do is water one another and allow our gifts to be used in the proper way. So what I had to do now in 2026, thanks for you and your community, you know what do I don't like? And it's ironic how we had asked for you to be here some months ago, but it is appropriate to where we are today to let our folks know that you are not stuck. As a family, I came from sharecroppers. What did they do? They bartered. My family always had some type of finance. However, we were wealthy in love. So now when you're here, people look at the monetary value. No, I prefer the love wealth, not the financial wealth, because the financial wealth will change. When you have that type of currency, you never have any lack. And that's where I feel that I am an anomaly, as Mark said. Now what I'm looking for, but I cannot be asking for people to get on this roll with me if they don't believe in what I'm saying. The basis of this. We came from nothing. As they say in life gives you lemons, you make lemonade.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
No doubt about that and everything. As you was just saying that, it sounds like you were talking about something that I know a lot of people talk about, which is this notion of finding your tribe, Dr. Coach Mike and everything like that. So finding that tribe that's a common tribe. I know that on this show, I found my tribe, and I have other tribes as well that are definitely include April, definitely Toya and Dean, who actually introduced me to his wife and everything along those lines in terms of the tribe that we share in terms of going into get positive messages out to the community and everything along those lines. I did have a couple of coaching questions that I was curious about your thoughts around and everything. And one of them, so I'll ask them separately, but I'll ask them together, but you can take them separately and everything like that. But you were in corporate America, and I was in the newspaper fields, and there was a corporate environment. And one of the things that I ran across was people that weren't necessarily your friends within the corporation and everything like that. I know that one of the newspapers I worked at, the gentleman had a different philosophy than I did, but in terms of what he wanted covered, but me and his editor found a way to get around that because he wanted a lot of sensationalism. He wanted a lot of sensational stories covered. So we found a way to talk about issues, but still give him that red line that he wanted and everything like that. So we did a kind of a end around in terms of what he wanted and the way that we painted it and all along those lines. And then another job that I had and everything, we were only a few minorities at that particular newspaper. It was a daily newspaper in Boca Raton, Florida, and everything. I was only there for 6 months or something, but I did get the feeling that the leadership there that was part of the same community in terms of a minority community was throwing roadblocks up against me and the other minorities there. I think there was a Hispanic woman and other folks. So I was just wondering, how did you get around dealing with those folks that were not necessarily your friends within the corporate society and everything like that? Because that is something that it is a leadership skill that I don't know that everybody knows. So I'll start with that question, then I'll go to the other one afterwards.
Certainly. So one of the first things I teach as a leadership personality, if you will, is the art of listening.
Yes.
Listening is so very, very important because an effective listener will know how to navigate any challenge, any room, because you're listening for opportunities. You're listening for what we have in common versus what we have that may be separate. Where are areas that we can agree and align versus areas that we clearly will have some contention with? And listening always affords the listener to have the high road. So, for example, anytime I'm in a situation where it's a new environment, I'm feeling out the environment, I may feel a certain kind of way that we may not be on the same page. And this happens every time you have a change up, right? Every time you're in a new circle, there's some uncertainty. There's some ambiguity there that's going on. So you have to navigate that. I always take the role of the listener. What's your viewpoint? Explain it to me. And my objective is not to judge, not to evaluate, just to take in. I listen for an understanding. And I can almost tell you pretty much every single time I'll walk away from that listening session with more information. I'm not responding. I'm not jumping in. I'm not interrupting. Give me your viewpoint. And I may have a preconceived notion and I'm not going to agree, or we may be at opposite ends of this conversation, and that's okay. But my point is, I'm going to allow you to explain to me fully where you are. And I can almost guarantee that if I give you that opportunity, I'm going to come a little bit closer because I have more understanding. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. It wasn't how I thought or initially perceived it. Now, that opportunity gives you credibility and it gives you respect, because now that I've listened to you, now it's your turn to listen to me. And you have the upper hand because your response is different than it would have been at the onset because you've gained some information. So now you have an opportunity to close the gap. And that's all people want. People want to know that they were heard. We may not agree, but that we were heard. And I still may not agree, but I have an understanding. And that's all that's key. So that's how you kind of navigate those situations. It's a listening skill.
No, it's interesting.
It's not something that easy.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying it's interesting you say that and everything because, like you said, places change leadership. I've been here in this company for a number of years. I'm sure even when you were at your company, it probably changed the leadership at least a few times, like maybe a president changed or a director changed and everything along those lines. And you've got to learn new leadership styles and everything like that. And I was actually talking to a potential person that may be joining the leadership team and all along those lines, because there were definitely some interviews where they're talking to staff and everything like that. And I had asked them a question of what they would do if they were to run across people that had a negative viewpoint of the place that I work at and everything like that. They said I'd give them a call. To your point, they would go out and reach out to those that were had preconceived notions or had maybe some bad blood and everything like that, to find out what could cause that and what they can do to alleviate it and everything like that. So I actually enjoyed that answer when they gave it, because they said that they would actually reach out to them, because I think a lot of times we just have preconceived notions and we don't even bother to do the first common step, which is to reach out to whoever is the perceived villain, and the villains get very in the job market and everything like that, but you don't know until you reach out to them. So I was actually pleased with that particular answer, because you don't always know what they're going to say.
Correct. So there's 3 modes of listening, right? And you can define this how you want. You'll hear different variations, but from my perspective, there's 3 modes. You have active listening. That's when you're listening for a response. Right. That's my definition. I'm actively listening because you're coming to me with a situation and I need to respond to it. And I don't have a lot of time. So I'm listening to respond. That's active listening. The other one is called empathetic listening. That's where I'm listening and I'm going to match your energy. So if you're happy, I'm going to be happy with you. If you're disappointed, I'm going to be disappointed with you. If you have a lot of energy, I'm going to match your energy. That's empathetic listening. You see that a lot of time with relationships. You know, my wife had a bad day at work. Oh man, really? I can't believe that happened. I'm going to match your energy. If you want somebody to console, I'm going to give you what you're looking for. I'm going to give you that empathy. The third one is called mindful listening. That's the most challenging. That's the one I was just describing. That's where you're going to shut up and listen. Don't listen to respond. Don't listen to formulate your response. It's not about you. It's about giving them your undivided attention and gathering as much information as you can at that time. The only time you would interrupt is if you want clarification. Did I understand you correctly when you said this? Yes. Okay, cool. Now I'm processing. I'm listening. I'm not listening to respond. I'm listening for the information. Once the conversation has concluded, I will allow myself ample time to process what it is that I listened, that I heard, and then give a response that's suitable for the occasion. If you practice that mindful listening, you can overcome a lot of challenges. And that's the listening that I was talking about. A lot of times we listen to respond. I'm problem solving.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Leader, go ahead.
I agree with that. It's a crossover from, with me being a therapist, that's exactly what is encouraged. The 3 things you stated, because again, people are the experts of themselves, but you're watching their movie. So when you're watching their movie, you got to keep your mouth closed to watch the whole thing. And guess what? Their behavior is going to come out. Behavior, their expertise about who they are, how are they when they're interacting with you? You get an opportunity, and I'm going to now look through your lens as the professional in leadership. You're looking for someone to look you in your eyes when they're talking to you. When they're looking down, you would say in your mind without talking, you have problems with your self-esteem and you don't feel that you can stand up and look at me and talk. So you begin to figure out as the coach now, maybe it's something with fear with this person, but I got to wait and see what else they're going to say. So I see how you're crossed over into those lines. Because from coming from corporate now and going into coaching, it's just so different. So when you embarked onto the coaching world, tell me what that was like for you to go from that into did you take a course? How did you get into this world of coaching?
Yes. So I was a certified professional coach through my employer.
Okay.
I did several trainings through my employer that kind of gave me the foundation. But after leaving my employment, I became a Maxwell certified coach. Took a trip down to Florida, took a week's class, and got certain certifications. And it is some ongoing learning that I had to participate in as well to make sure that my certification would continue. So yeah, I did receive some official coaching training coupled with what I had already experienced. And you put all that stuff together, and I think I'm a rather unique individual in terms of coaching. I have a corporate perspective. I have a nonprofit perspective. I am a Black man. And whether we know it or not, this is a subject that the community that I'm a member of is not necessarily going to embrace. Being an alpha male, I don't necessarily embrace the need for coaching. So I'm usually in a standalone position, which is great because it's an opportunity for me to educate, to empower, and to show you what you need without you even realizing it. For example, that mindful listening, like that's a skill set that I've adopted. Like I didn't always have that. But I've learned it now. I am a great listener. I wasn't always that. So now when I'm talking to my peers, men of color, strong alpha men in color, pride, ego, all of those things that we embody, when I shut up and listen, okay, go ahead, finish. Yes. Now it's like, wow. Yeah, I just put you through a coaching session, my friend. That's what I do. And now they're open to it. But it's hard. But the transition, like I said at the onset, you have to learn how to coach yourself. I realized that I was still not what I needed to be. I was not adding value to my company. I acknowledged that. Something had broken, whereas I was on that list to let go. I acknowledged that. I had to come to terms with that. So that's part of it. We need to come to terms with who we are. And if I can help you get to that point, then that's half the battle. Because now it's just a conversation about what's going to happen next.
So I have a follow-up question. Matter of fact, I have two questions. But when you talk about knowing yourself, what is the question that you pose to help people identify who they are? Because I'm going to tell you a question that I asked, but I'm going to hear what you say, what I asked in therapy. But what do you ask for so you can understand that person understand who they are?
First thing I talk about is, what are your values?
Okay.
What are your values? And people automatically think they know. Like it's a question that's kind of difficult when you sit back and think about it. What's important to you? What are you not willing to compromise? And I have a worksheet that we go through that speaks to values. And now once we understand what our values are, top 3 or 4, maybe 5 things that we value, now we couple that with what is it that we're trying to accomplish. If your values don't match what you're trying to accomplish, we have a misalignment. We're not going to be successful. It's going to be pain. It's going to be harder than you anticipated because your values are not matched with what you're trying to accomplish. Your values help you identify who you are, what type of person that you're going to be. Who are you is identifiable what's important to you. Once we've identified that, now it's like, okay, I'm sitting here trying to chase this job, or I'm sitting here trying to chase this opportunity, but that opportunity doesn't even match up with who I am. That's why it's not working. That's why I'm hitting so many roadblocks. That's why it's so hard, because you're not yoked with what you're trying to do. The first thing for knowing who you are, for me, from a coaching perspective, is understanding what your values are. We go through that exercise. What do you value? Why? What you're not willing to compromise? What are you willing to suffer in order to have? What are you willing to give up in order to accomplish? Those are things that you value. So when we do that, now we can have that conversation. That opens the door to who you actually are.
Yeah, along those same lines, Coach Mike, and everything. And I think Dr. April said she had to follow, but I did. If I can just jump in there really quickly and everything like that. just really quickly along those same lines, corporations have something called a mission statement, and a mission statement is kind of their values, and all along those lines. I don't care whether it's a nonprofit, I don't care whether it's a for-profit organization, but all
Mhm.
organizations should have a mission statement. And what I have found, and I'd love to hear your thoughts around this, is that a lot of people, one, don't know the mission statement of who they work for, and two, when they do realize the mission statement, they sometimes find that their personal values don't necessarily match the values of the mission statement, and all along those lines. So I just wonder, as a coach, how do you tell people to navigate that situation? Because one, like I said, you should know the mission statement of your organization, no matter what the organization is, and everything like that. But a lot of people don't, whether they're working for Pepsi or whether they're working for Procter and Gamble or whether they're working for the Kennedy Center or the Kennedy Trump Center, it's now called, and everything like that. But how do you navigate that notion of making sure that your values align with the values of the corporation?
That's a great question. That's a question that I've had asked before. So the truth is, your values may not match up with your employer.
Right.
That's just a simple fact. So what you have to do as an employee or an associate, you have to identify which values that you have align with what your job performance is. And that's not necessarily
Well,
easily done, but
go to
what values do I have align with my
you,
specific
you,
job performance? Not necessarily the mission of the company or the organization, but my specific job performance.
right.
And if you have a perspective of trying to add value to people, which is something that I stress as an individual, add value to yourself and then add value to people. More often than not, you can find an alignment that would allow you to perform at a job, even if your values don't necessarily match up with the core values or the mission statement of an organization.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have a friend who's a life coach, and she's actually got a show on the network Pod TV that I'm part of, and which now this show is part of as well. And Barbara Smith is a life coach and everything like that. She does a lot of training, and one thing she talks about is this notion of the elevator speech that you should be able to give at any point that'll introduce you and everything along those lines. So I was wondering, as a life coach, do you have one of those? Because I know one of the things she talks about is a very unusual one, because she talks about how she was an engineer at 7, a race car driver at like 9, and I forgot what the other one was at 15. But it basically is, when you first hear that, you're going like, that's impossible. You could have been a race car driver at 7. But what she meant is that she literally borrowed like one of her relatives' cars and went off racing with it and everything along those lines, and that she built something at the age of 7 and discovered her engineering qualities, because I think she actually has some engineering background as well and everything like that. So it's kind of like that elevator speech that people can give, that can give people an idea of who they are by finding something unique about yourself. So I was just wondering, is that something that you do similar? And if so, what kind of unique stories do you tell? I just gave hers and everything like that, because I've always found that to be a fascinating one. And I wish I could remember the third one, but it's not coming to me.
That's no problem. So thank you for asking that. So I have a couple different ones in terms of elevator speech, right? My favorite one is quite simple, because I find that simple is often the best.
Right.
My job is to add value to people who wants to add value to other people. That's the essence of what I do as a professional coach. Add value to people who have a desire of adding value to other people. Because ultimately, only what you do for others is what counts. And how we achieve that will take the conversation off the elevator, right? That's a separate conversation, and depending upon your response to that will depend upon which way I direct the conversation. But ultimately, if you're not interested in adding value to other people, with the understanding that you first have to value yourself and add value to yourself, then we're probably not going to be equally yoked, professionally or otherwise. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not a motivational speaker.
Right.
I'm not. A lot of times what I say might come off as a little condescending, quite honestly, because my objective is to give you the truth as I see it at that moment in time. It's like taking that medicine. Sometimes the medicine's a little bitter, but you still got to take it. Still got to take it, but you'll be better for it, right? You'll be better for it. So that's my objective. I add value to people who desire to add value to other people. It's as simple as that. I do that through several different measures, but that's my elevator talk. That's
No,
it.
that makes a lot of sense.
Thank you. And thank you. And I just want to pop in really quick because Mark had some great questions, but I want to add that I no longer supervisor, as an administrator, I basically oversee the quality assurance department. So what happens is one of the things that I see when I'm defending something for the Office of Licensing for the state of New Jersey, and just as a coach, and you're talking to other people, when you just said the mission is what's allowing us to execute what I'm here for. But what I've noticed is that when I'm looking at the clinical record or anything like that, just for anybody that supervises, how do you get the staff, your subordinates, to buy in? Because as you said, sometimes it could be bitter. I'm about the business. I'm not about the personal. I'm about executing the mission. So that's where I feel I get a disconnect, because I am here for the compassion of the service that I want to provide. The outcomes is important. However, when I speak on logic, sometimes it becomes illogical with the responses that I get. So what is what do you want to tell the people who supervise so that they can do things great?
That's a great question, right? So hopefully you've heard of the 5 levels of leadership. You probably have. Now I'm gonna give you a quick synopsis of what it is. The 5 level of leadership is based on your ability to influence others, right? So leadership is basically influence and your ability to have influence over others. That's the crux of leadership. If you have no influence, then you can't be a leader. All right. So level 1 is the positional leader. That is the leader that is appointed by title or position. You were elected or appointed or something like that, meaning that there's nothing special about you other than the fact that you have this title that means that someone is supposed to follow you, right? That's level 1. That is the basement of leadership. Level 2 is called the permission level. That's more of a relationship building level of influence, meaning that you want to follow me because you may find me personable, or you may start to get to know who I am. I've started to care about who you are. So now it's more of a relationship. So I give you permission to lead me. Number 3 is the production level, which means that you have a reputation for getting things accomplished. For most leaders, they get to that level and no more. They get to the level of production and that's it. They have the ability to get things done. They're great task managers. They're great project managers. They get stuff done. And so therefore they are propelled into leadership positions. Level 4 is where you start to break down some of that. Level 4 is when you start to develop people, meaning that I'm going to follow you because of what you poured into me. It's different. Now, as a level 4 production person type of leader that is developing other leaders, when we have conversation that's unpopular, or we have a task that may not be warm and fuzzy, or we have to have that difficult conversation about what's next on the agenda that everyone's going to be accountable for. If I am a level 4 leader, that means that I've poured into my team individually and collectively. That means they've trusted me. So I can say what's unpopular. I can say, listen, this is not that medicine you may need that you don't want to take, but you got to take it. And it's my job to give it to you. But because I've done level 1, level 2, I'm relatable. Level 3, I've shown you that as a leader, we can get the job done. Level 4, I've poured into you, meaning that you're where you're at in part because I've poured into you. I've invested into you directly. That buys me the latitude I need to make those tough decisions, to have those difficult conversations. So as a leader, if you're finding challenges with whatever the landscape looks like, focus on the individual development, and that gives you the latitude to have those difficult conversations. And then there's a 5th level. It's called the pinnacle level. And that's where your leadership is based on your respect, meaning they know who you are when you walk into the room. But that's another level.
Thank you. I love the answer that you gave, because I'm very compassionate about what I do. And I feel that sometimes people need to hear that. And again, I look at the outcomes, and I can say this as a A supervisor, if I had someone coming for diapers, I would take that urine. That's one thing I never would ask my staff to do anything that I wouldn't do. And I know that as you would do as well. But the only thing is that the final part of that question is, yes, there's going to be a time where you're going to have people that respect you and it's going to split. And it might be maybe about 20% that's not. So now, once you're faced with that and you have the buy-in of 80, what do you do with the other 20?
So here's a good, I love that question, right? When I'm talking to leaders, I tell them this. I call the 50, the 25, 25, 50 rule. When I walk into a room and I have to make an announcement or I have to make a decision or I have to set some kind of ground rules or whatever the case may be, 25% of the people are going to support me regardless. They support me. They're on Coach Mike's team. 25% of people. Likewise, 25% of the people, no matter what I say, it's not going to matter. They're not going to be happy. They hate me. They're going to be disgruntled. They're going to talk negatively about it. So now I have the 50% of the people that's on the fence. So I empower the 25% that's on my team, the 25% that gets it, that I don't have to convince, to now go in and convince that 50% to the right side versus the 25% that's negative that's going to do the same thing. However, the 25 that's negative are not empowered. See, I empower the people that get it. So that 20% you're talking about, or whatever that percentage is that gets what you're saying, you need to empower them to now go and speak what you need to have spoken. Now go and wave the flag that you have planted. This is the way we need to go. You need to empower them. That does a couple things. It takes you out of it because you still have to maintain a leadership perspective, which is in some parts non-partial, right? It takes you out of it. It empowers those that are on your team to go do the dirty work, somewhat, for lack of a better expression. Now, in doing that, you're also developing them. You're giving them leadership opportunities. You're giving them some challenges to go figure out. So again, you're pouring into them again. That 80-20 rule. You're pouring into the 20% that yields 80% of the results. You're pouring into them. That's how you do that. You empower the people that's on your team to go out there and fight your battles while you maintain the level of leadership that you need to maintain.
Yes, I agree with everything you're saying. That's exactly right. So I'm going to go back to, one of my questions and also the response that you had to my earlier question about how do you help people identify who they are? I do exactly what you're saying too. Who am I? That's how I start out in therapy, because I need to understand who you are to help you go through your healing journey so you can get to the end, whatever your product is going to be. But the other thing that I wanted to ask you was about fear, so how do you help people, help leaders navigate through fear, especially when they're fearing change? Because I go through that with my clients. Like, they are definitely afraid of the unknown, because the unknown equals change. That's what it does. It equals that. But they're so scared to go over there. So how do you help leaders that have fear about change go, what do you do to help them move forward or conquer
So that's a
that?
great question. So fear is largely imaginated. So I'll go through a process of, okay, what are we afraid of? Let's call it out. Let's call it out. What are we afraid of? Are we afraid of failing? Are we afraid of the embarrassment that may come with it? Are we afraid of the hard work that might be associated with the change? Let's put a name to everything we can put a name to. And then I'll ask, okay, how much of this is imaginated versus real? Are we live or Memorex? I remember those commercials, the live or Memorex. Like, what is it? Is this an imagination here? Are we assuming that these things are going to happen? Or do we have any kind of factual content to suggest that this is real? More often than not, it's imagined, particularly if you're talking about change. Like, change is inevitable. So as a leader, I say, listen, your job, your purpose as a leader is for moments like this. If there were no change on the table, if everyone was comfortable and warm and fuzzy and doing what they wanted to do, and everything was sweet and everyone is singing and they're happy, then we wouldn't need any leaders. People would just go do what they do. The mere fact that we have leaders are to handle the change, the confusion, the ambiguity that goes along with it. So that's why we're here. So we should embrace it. So we go through the exercise of what it is that we're afraid of. And we will eliminate over half of that list just through conversation, just by calling it out. We would eliminate it. We would eliminate. Now, those things that may be legitimate, okay, let's play worst case scenario. This is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life. Yes. Okay, now what? If not you, then who? Who would you? I'll ask you to name somebody that you will put this responsibility on. Okay, it shouldn't be yours. Who's supposed to manage this change? Name somebody. And they can't. They can't name anybody because deep down inside, it's them. So yes, it's hard. And I'm not here to tell you that it's going to be easy, that there's no magic easy pill. That doesn't exist. But we have to persevere through that with the understanding that, yes, it's our responsibility. If not me, then who? Who do you want? And then we go have that conversation with that person. But that person doesn't exist because it's me. It's my job. It's my job to do this. So you know what? I might fail. Let me rephrase that. You're going to fail. How about that?
Right.
You're going to fail. You're going to trip and fall and bust your head wide open to the white meat shows. That's what's going to happen. I guarantee it. So now that we understand that that's what's going to happen, okay, that fear is off the table. It's going to happen. As a matter of fact, let's look forward to it. Because the sooner you fail, then the sooner you can learn, and the sooner you can get back up and keep going.
Yeah.
Embrace it.
But Coach
Yes.
Mike, Coach Mike, there was a flip to that and everything like that in corporate America. And I know you dealt with this because I know everybody that I've known that has worked for corporate America. And I've done some work in the past in corporate America as well as all these various nonprofits I've worked at and all along those lines. And that is the notion of leaders that are not sure of their leadership style, because you got a lot of leaders that are micromanagers,
Good
and
point.
they will basically, and then you got some that are more macro managers and everything like that. So I just wondered, how do you deal with that in your training and everything like that? Because you got some leaders that don't even give their staff growth or opportunities to actually create initiatives of their own because they're too busy trying to run everybody's department and everything like that. And I've seen that in both major corporations as well as minor corporations and everything like that. So I just wondered, how do you deal with that whole micro versus macro conversation?
That's a great question. So I'll go back to what I stated previously about the 5 levels of leadership. The first 3 levels are pretty self-explanatory. That 4th level is where it gets a little tricky. If you desire to be the type of leader going to develop other leaders, which should be the objective, if that's your desire, then micromanaging is not the answer, because you're not going to be able to develop.
Right.
And everyone can see that. So if I'm the type that's a micromanager, then that's probably due to some insecurity that I may have about my team. I had some bad experience where I let them go off and they failed me. I was embarrassed, right? So I'd rather just do it myself, or I'm going to have my foot on your neck every step along the way till the job's done, right? So I go back to, okay, an effective leader has a responsibility to develop. So you're not developing like that. So that's easy to understand, right? But then there's another part of that, right? What else could you be doing with your time that's productive rather than micromanaging your team? And we'll go through that. Like, one of the first lessons I do when I'm talking about priorities and time management and things of that nature, I say, listen, from the time you ask, what time do you get up in the morning on a Monday through Friday? What time do you get up? And they may say, I get up at 5 o'clock. Okay, cool. I need you to write down, keep a log of what you do hour by hour.
Right.
So from 5 to 6, what did you do? From 6 to 7, what did you do? From 7 to 8, what did you do? Oh, I got to work at 8:30. Okay, from 8 to 9, what did you do? Throughout your day, all the way till you lay your head down. Now, particularly, I'll ask you to focus on work for the purposes of this conversation, micromanaging, things like that. What did you do? And if you're honest with yourself, you're going to say, oh, I spent so much time on non-productive work, to include micromanaging my team, that if I just diverted some of that time elsewhere, I could be a much more effective leader. So now what have I done? I am helping others to develop, and at the same time, I'm becoming a more effective leader. It's a win-win.
Yeah, isn't
It's
part
a
of that
win-win.
trust? Yeah, Coach Mike, isn't part of that trust though as well? I'm gonna give an example. Like I said, there was a conversation. I won't say what the job is and everything like that, but for a job opening here and everything like that. And one of the things that I know I was frustrated by, and other people that were there in the meeting were frustrated by, was the firm that is looking for the job or helping to look for the job laid out questions that they wanted asked, and a lot of people are like asking that question of that's one of the examples of micromanaging, because if we're asking the questions, why are we in the room? Because there's no need for us to be in the room. We should be able to create our own questions and our own things that we are curious about whatever the candidate is and everything. But if they come in with prepared questions, I mean, even in journalism, that's a problem that I have when clients or people that want to be interviewed send me prepared questions, because I am not a big fan of prepared questions and everything like that, because I don't think that it actually leads to true conversation, because one, it's a trust issue, and two, it's a listening issue, because if you're going to have prepared questions, you're not really listening. You're just waiting for them to get to the next answer until you can go to the next question.
Absolutely.
Like that. So I just wanted your thoughts around that, because that's something that threw me off. And like I said, I won't name the firms because it's not important, but that threw me off and all along those lines when they had prepared questions.
Right. So that's a great question. So leadership comes in different perspectives. The person with the title or the position is expected to be a leader of sorts.
Right.
But me as the associate or the employee, I also have a responsibility to lead. So I can help my leader be a better leader by me being a leader myself. So for example, to give the respond to the example you had, you understand what needs to be done, right? So I would go to my leader with a set of questions, right? Based on, number one, what is the objective?
Right.
So that's a conversation. What is the objective of this interviewing process, this vetting process that we're going through? What's the objective? And I'm the employee talking to my supervisor, my director, my manager. What's the objective? I'm posing a question to you. And there's a conversation that ensues because of that, right? And it's a little weird, because normally you're answering the questions as opposed to asking them. You got to flip it. I'm going to be the leader. What is the objective? Well, here's what I see as the objective. Here, these core points we want to come across in terms of questions and answers. Whether we're asking questions or whether information is voluntarily given through conversation, we want to make sure we check these boxes off. Is that fair? Yes, that's fair. Is there anything that we're missing here that we want to have checked off? Well, you know what? Add this point or that point. Okay, good. Now, you and I have an objective on what this next meeting is going to be about. Now, I've gone to you and I've led from the side. Now, the leader who may be feeling a little bit whatever, because of the conversation, that trust starts to come back. Now, it's not going to happen like that. But after a process or two or three, that trust will again come to surface. See, leaders have an opportunity and a responsibility to lead from wherever they are. I've led up. Sometimes you have to lead down. Sometimes you have to lead up.
Yeah.
You have to know that the leader that's ahead of you, you have to understand their deficiencies, because we all have some deficiencies. If there's a trust, then what can I do to make them more trustworthy of me? You have a responsibility to do that. That comes from the self-awareness.
Thank you, Coach Mike. Can I just jump in there real quick just to add on to that? because I think everyone here, minus Mark, has been in a leadership in a volunteer capacity. And that's the big one, because normally when I sign up for something, it's because I believe in a mission, as Mark stated. So what I don't understand is that when you're thinking about on your paid job, now my thing here is, if I'm going to do this paid job, I know I'm gonna get some resistance. But when you're in a volunteer arena, what do you do? Because as a leadership, basically you have an outcome that needs to be done. So now I already know all the steps. All I did is I did the framework because I'm visual. So what do you do? Because you don't want to have dissension, because sometimes someone was given a task and they did not execute it. What do you do there without messing it up? Because again, we are doing this because we love it. Now in a paid job, you got to deal with it. So what would you do as a coach? How would you tell the listener to do when you are giving a task? Now you don't want to micromanage, but however, it's a volunteer job and you don't want someone to lose the respect for you. It's not personal, it's business. What do you recommend as a coach for a leader who is trying to get something done? And now you're at the point, I could do it by myself. It's just that now we need to be able to execute. So what kind words do you have us to coach us along that process?
Awesome. So it goes back to understanding it's the same thing. It's just a little different twist. So what is our mission? In a volunteer world, what is the mission? And it is a level of transparency. Here's the mission. What is it that your role provides to this mission? Like, what is that you bring to our team that can help us, enable us to accomplish this mission? So it's about transparency and understanding. In a volunteer-based leadership capacity, the leader has to have demonstrated the capacity or willingness to do the work. Whereas in corporate structure, you just kind of do what I say, whether you like it or not. But in a volunteer base, in order to get the buy-in, the leader should have demonstrated, either currently or in the past, the willingness and the aptitude to get the job done. Because that gives you a set of credibility that otherwise you may not have. And in a volunteer capacity, that's part of the buy-in. That's part of the buy-in. So not only am I going to find out, and we're going to discuss what your skill sets are and how they attribute to the success of our overall goal, I'm also going to work with you in that process. Now, I may not have the capacity to work with you step by step because I have other responsibilities, but I'm going to give you a little bit of my time. I'm going to give you a little bit of my time. I'm going to give a little bit of my time to that project over there. I'm going to give a little bit of my time to this initiative right here. And collectively, everyone is saying like, okay, I can buy in because they're part of the solution. Corporate America and the corporate structure where you're getting paid to do a job is totally different than the volunteer world. Leadership is totally different. It's about your ability to connect. If you don't have the ability to connect, then it's a lost cause, particularly in a volunteer-based world. It's a lost cause. It's funny you ask that because when I speak to clients, corporate clients, I'll ask them, how do you influence your team, your board, executives? How do you influence them to work? And they don't understand the question. They don't understand the question. Well, this, that, and the other. We have our mission statement, this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, it comes down to a paycheck. That's what it comes down to. They're influenced by a paycheck. That's fair. I said, part of my experience is having that paycheck as well to dangle to employees. The other half of my experience comes from having people follow me because they want to.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's a different mentality.
Yeah.
Having people follow you because they want to. So now what about your leadership skills? Director, CEO, president, people manager. What about your leadership skills will have people want to follow you beyond you just giving them a paycheck?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Address that question.
Yes, you did. Thank you very much.
That's a good answer.
No, I'm saying if you address that question, then you can answer everything else. It's a personal question. What is it that I need to do? What do I have to show?
Hey, Coach Mike.
Thank you.
Coach Mike, along those same lines and everything along that way. I was talking earlier today before we started the show about a gentleman that's one of the coaches for Indiana and everything along those lines. And actually, another Indiana person. He actually went to Indiana University. Talks about his problem as well. But one of the coaches was in welfare for 2 years and is now a $1 million coach and everything along those lines. And then even Mark Cuban himself went through financial hardship. As a matter of fact, he lived in a cramped apartment and worked multiple jobs to support himself when he went to Indiana. And he even described his time building his first company as broke as F and everything like that. He didn't take a vacation for several years to focus on his business. So some people aren't willing to make those sacrifices. So I was just wondering your thoughts about, do you really have to make those kind of like harsh life sacrifices? Because we oftentimes hear those racial algebra stories and everything along those lines where people have gone through some tremendous turmoil and then they have gone off to become rich beyond rich, the biggest riches that we can have. I think there's even stories around what Elon Musk history and everything like that. So I just wanted, because that's one of those narratives that's out there, is that some people are afraid of leadership because they're afraid that they're going to have to struggle too much in order to be a leader when they hear those kind of stories. Like Brian, I forgot Brian's last name, but he's one of the defensive coordinators for Indiana University and their football team that'll be playing for the national championship. But he literally said he was in welfare for 2 years, making like $6,000 and having to do that cost cutting and everything. And now he's got like, I think, a 3 or 4 million, maybe even a $6 million contract and everything like that.
So the honest answer is yes. To go up, you have to give up. It is sacrifice.
What?
It is. I was talking to a group of individuals just last night, and it was a team of people who were facing a struggle. And I asked them, I said, "Is this something you've ever done before?" And they all agreed, no, this is something that we've never done this before. I said, okay, what is it going to take to do something you've never done before? And they were giving me words and phrases and philosophies, and all of which was correct. But I simplified it. In order to do something you've never done before, you have to do something you've never done before. Yeah. Let that set in. You got to do something you've never done before. So what is that? You don't know until you get there. So it is about sacrifice. Look at some of our most renowned leaders in the history of our time. I'll take Martin Luther King. We would all agree that he was a phenomenal leader. He gave his life. He gave his life. And we can list countless others that we've seen in the public eye and what they've had to give up and sacrifice to achieve a certain level of leadership in their respective fields. So the answer is yes, you're going to have to give up something. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I go back to the onset of the question that was asked earlier about values. Is this leadership role that you're seeking or aspiring, does it align with your values? If it does, then great. If it doesn't, then you're not going to achieve what you're looking to achieve because you're not yoked.
Yeah, you're not yoked. That makes sense. So Mike, just really quickly on that same line of thought and everything along those lines. I did look at your bio and looked at some of the things that Dr. April sent us and everything along those lines. And I'm just wondering, how important is it to not just be aligned in your business and in your family and all along those lines, but to be aligned in your community? Because I consider myself to be a community advocate. Anybody that knows Durham, North Carolina knows that I'm involved in a lot of things here, not just the cultural center, but I have been involved in some political activities and some social justice activities and all along those lines. So I was just wondering, how important do you think it is to be a community advocate? I'll just give my brother an example. He he worked with at-risk youth, but he also has a slingshot club, the popular car, and they do a lot of work with the providing food and everything like that. So he uses that as his community advocacy tool. So a lot of leaders will find ways to stay engaged in the community. So I was just wondering your thoughts around community advocacy and how important is it in your own life?
For me personally, community advocacy is very important. It's a staple in what I do. However, I go back to my elevators talk, right? My objective is to add value to people who want to add value to other people. How you choose to add value to other people could be vast. It could be bad. It could be looking like community engagement or community advocacy or things of that nature. It doesn't have to necessarily fit that mold. But in leadership, there is a certain level, a high level of service that's required. Leadership is about service. You are serving those that you are quote unquote leading. You are providing a service. You are giving of yourself. That's why that elevator talk is so key, because leadership is not about telling people what to do. It's about adding value to people and empowering them to get what needs to be done completed. It's a different mindset. In order to do that, you have to have a certain love for people. You have to. You have to. So yes, community advocacy is important for me, but it doesn't have to be important for everyone in order for them to be a good and effective leader. But there is a component that requires service, service to others. That is a huge component of leadership, effective leadership. So I hope that answered your question.
No, that definitely answered my question and everything like that.
Perfect.
In that same space, how do you deal with people? And this is gonna be a slightly left question, but I think that you'll know where I'm going. In all along those lines, within leadership, there are sometimes people that have a different vision than you do and everything like that, and they want you to be take on their vision, even though it may not be your own vision and everything like that. Because I know even in my own life, I'll give examples. I've had friends that have wanted me to not just support them. I don't mind supporting people. I mean, I support April, I support the Butterfly Room, I support a number of others, but I've had friends that wanted me to support them at the cost of things that I have value with and things that I want to do as well. So they kind of like want to hijack your mission and everything like that. So I just wondered, is that something that you talk about in your leadership training, and how do you get people to get away from that? Because you will have people in life that will try to hijack your mission. I remember one friend that had a idea that everybody should come under his fold in terms of like his business and everything like that, and bring their business under his fold and everything, not realizing that we all had our own separate visions and everything like that.
Right.
So how do you deal with those folks that want to hijack the vision?
So I'm gonna start with the last thing you just said. Everyone has their own separate vision, right? So I'm gonna start with that. So I was listening to I can't recall the speaker. He passed now. A brother from the Bahamas, Miles Monroe, Dr. Miles Monroe. You may have listened to him. I'm a fan of his. And he did a talk on vision. And the premise was that everyone has their own vision. And there are no two visions that are alike.
Exactly.
You have your own vision, and that was given to you by God. Your own vision. Now, with that understanding, I have a conversation that sounds a little bit like this. Everyone has their own vision, and your vision is for you, like my vision is for me. If our visions are closely aligned, there's opportunity for us to work together. Exactly. If they're not closely aligned, then you are accountable for your vision, and I am accountable for my vision. So here's the promise. I will try not to do anything that will be counterproductive to you achieving your vision, meaning that if I can help, I will help. Likewise, I'm going to ask that you not be anything counterproductive to me achieving my vision. And that's just a conversation that we have to have that kind of lends to there are no hijacking of visions and missions. And you know, at some point in time, you know, we're not going to all be warm and fuzzy. At some point in time, the decision is this. And my objective as a leader is to make sure that you understand the decision, that you're not walking away from the decision confused or lacking an understanding. Once I've done that, then how you choose to handle it is a separate conversation. I can help you manage that as well. Not that it's going to change, but I can help you manage how you respond to it and how you react to it. That's a different conversation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So listen, Mark, thank you for talking a lot for me, because my voice is jacked up, but I learned a lot today. But so, Coach Mike, Your realism is very important, and I'm like that too. What I tell a lot of people is I'm very forward, and I'm gonna tell you the truth. And I
Mhm.
think that's really important also in leadership, because you got to challenge people, and that's the way of challenging them. Like you said, everything is not going to be warm and fuzzy. So in the coaching world, you got to push people, you got to challenge them and get them to the place that they want to go, but they have to be the receiver of that too.
Yep.
So as you are working with these people, do you keep it real with them too? If you feel like they're resistant and they don't want to go anywhere, do you tell them straight out, look, this is what I see? What do you do when you see that?
So the funny thing is, I had to learn this at the onset, that coaching is not me doing a job for you. I'm not your mentor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not your advisor. Although some of those roles kind of overlap in the coaching and there can be some similarities, but the definition of coaching is I'm none of those things. I'm not your mental health provider. I'm none of those things. My job as a coach is to help you identify a challenge and help you to find a solution to meeting your objective, whatever that may be. That's my job as a coach, to help you find your solution, to give you a sense of accountability for identifying the solution, identifying the plan, coming up with your standard, and then living up to it. But it's your standard. So the first thing first is, what is the standard that you want to accept for yourself? And once we have that understanding, my job is to hold you to your standard, not my standard, but your standard. So it looks a little bit like, okay, well, we agreed that you would do X, Y, and Z. And then how we've had some excuses of why that hasn't accomplished. You haven't accomplished that.
Mm-hmm.
What are you telling yourself about that? And then I shut up, because I need you to come to the realization that you are not cheating me. You have cheated yourself.
Yeah.
So I keep it, the focus is all about you. My job is to help you navigate a little bit, maybe give you a little push if you get stuck, to remind you of the roadmap that you set out, that we agreed to was a good roadmap. We agreed to this as the plan, right? We agreed to this. We talked about the pros and cons, and you settled like, this is the way we want to go. Yes, Coach Mike. Okay, what happened? And then I shut up. And that puts all of the responsibility on them. So, and it happens. It happens. So normally in a coaching arrangement, I may have, 10 or 12 sessions set up for a coaching arrangement, executive coaching, professional coaching, whatever it may be, one-on-one or two-on-one, meaning me and two others. And I may have that, and we will have some ground rules that we will set, and we will map some things out. And it may be third session in when we're getting into some good stuff and we trip and fall. It happens.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we stumble. Maybe we're a little too aggressive. Okay, maybe we need to back up a little bit and reset and start again. But we're going to own that. We're going to own that. Because at the end of the day, this is your journey that I'm helping you to navigate. So I just put the responsibility back on them. It's a learned trait, because you want to get in and help. No, this is what you need to do. No, my job is not to tell you what to do. Now, my experience, I might try to lead you a certain way that I know is probably preferred, but I need you ultimately to make that decision that this is the way you want to go. Because at the end of the day, you can't blame anyone else
but you
for the results. Right.
That's right.
I take all that away.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I'm not necessarily nice about it. I have my own personality that comes out. I'm very unapologetic about it. Like I said, I'm a little condescending at times. I'm not your motivational speaker. Now, I may say something that motivates you. That's different than me looking to motivate you. I want to give you what I knew to be the truth, that medicine. and it may be sometimes bitter, like I stated before. That's the objective. So it happens. It happens in every relationship, every coaching arrangement, every coaching relationship that I have. It happens. But once we get to know each other, and I say something that you might say was a little slick, and then I'm gonna pause and I'm gonna laugh, and then you're gonna laugh and say, "Okay, I see what you're saying, Coach Mike. All right, I gotta stop playing around. I'm tripping. Let me get back. Let me get back. Okay, are we good to finish, or you want to pause? No, let's go. I'm good. Okay, let's go. Now you know what? I do need to pause. Let's cut it short right now. Let me go back and fix that. And let me get back. Okay, go do that. Hit me back. Hit me back when you're ready.
Yeah, I like that, Coach Mike. Hey, Coach Mike, along those same lines, I think people are sometimes surprised, and you mentioned your own family and the changes you went through when you went from corporate America to being a coach and everything like that. But I think sometimes people are surprised that leadership isn't always where you expect it to be and everything like that. Because I know that even in my own family, some of the biggest leaders among my cousins are actually, ironically, those that are slightly younger. I know that in my one cousin's situation, his older brother isn't the one that is in charge of the family situation, but his younger brother, who is a GBI officer, is actually the one that is doing more of the family leadership. And I would even argue that my own cousin, who's probably about, I'm in my early 60s, so she's probably about 10 years or 13 years younger than me, is one of the leaders of our family dynamic and everything like that. So I think sometimes people are surprised that the leaders are not the stereotypical leaders. So I was just wondering your thoughts around that, because I think sometimes we don't give enough voice to the youth, and we think that they're automatically not going to be the leaders. But I can tell you from my own family that I've seen that sometimes the youth have better voices and everything like that. And I don't mind the fact that Tanya is actually one of the family leaders, or that John is a greater leader in terms of his family dynamics than his own brother. And I would even say that about my own brother, that he's probably a greater leader in my own family dynamics and everything like that. But sometimes people are afraid to give up those leadership roles because they've got those stereotypes based on ageism and age and everything like that. And I'm sure you saw that in corporate America. But I just wanted your take on that, where maybe we don't give enough say to our youth leaders, and some of them are great leaders. I'm thinking there's even some 20-year-olds that can outthink and probably outmaneuver me in leadership and everything like that. But I'm just wondering your thoughts around that.
Yes. So you hit a couple good points, right? Leadership has nothing to do with title. Right. Has nothing to do with seniority.
Right.
Those things that we typically want to identify and classify as the appropriateness for a person to be identified as a leader, that's not the case. Leadership is really about love. Right. And I know that sounds really corny. I did a talk in a prison before the holidays, like early December. Now, mind you, I have never been in a prison before in any capacity at all. It was my first time. And I went inside a prison into their yard and did a leadership talk. And I said leadership is love. And I know that sounds corny. Same thing I just said, I repeated it. And they said, nah, that's not corny, Coach Mike. That's not corny. That's real. I said, okay, yeah, it is real. Thank you. I needed that affirmation that they received it. But leadership is love. It's your ability to love the people that you're impacting. So if that's the case, then what does it look like? It looks like the person that's able to demonstrate that love. It doesn't matter the age. It doesn't matter the sex. It doesn't matter the circumstance. It doesn't matter the experience. None of that matters. It's the ability to show that love. Because if that's the case, then I'm going to listen to what it is that you have to say. I'm going to pay attention to what's going on around everybody and what's impacting everybody. I'm going to have empathy for your situations and what's going on in your life. I'm paying attention. And that ability puts me in a position to be a leader.
Or even
and yes, you can be young, you can be old. Yes, absolutely.
Or even their title and everything like that. Because I mean, I'm sure that people in and I just know this because of Pod TV and knowing some people from this particular country. I'm sure that some 10 or 15 years ago, when he was only known as a comic and a TV host that people were not expecting Zelensky to be a leader, but he was thrusted into that role, and he's definitely a leader of his country and everything like that. But I'm sure that the people that know that history would not expect him what amounted to a TV host, because he was their version, only a much nicer version of Trump and everything like that, because he was literally a comic and a TV host.
Exactly. Leadership is your ability to influence.
Yes, agreed. Toya, I see you have a visitor with you.
She insisted
Hello.
on coming. Your grandbaby.
Hello, Jordan.
You say hello,
Jordan. What are you doing on this show?
She insisted. So she was Tonya, and she came out after me. So I stepped in there to spend time with the little ones for the welcome, and she insisted on being on the show today. So I can't do that.
Okay.
She
Well,
keeps me in there.
that's the beginning of. That's the
Like, would
beginning
that
of
be
a
an
leader
example of a
right
leader?
there.
She was just being a leader. She was saying that I want to be here on the show. She was being a leader.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
This is a future leader here. So she just
That's
said
right.
she wanted what she wanted. She said I left it. I kept leaving. So she followed me. So she heard a little bit.
Good.
Okay, good. That's
amazing.
good.
That's amazing. Congratulations. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
and
you
I
for
said I wanted to
listening.
be here for the parting words. I said, Nanny, always we do the parting words, and I wanted to be here for that.
Yes.
So she said she's going to be part of that too.
Awesome.
Okay, well, so Coach Mike, I do have one more question for you before before we part. So my last question for you is about what is next for Progressive Traditions, Leadership, and Coaching. What's up next for you?
That's awesome. Okay, so right now I'm focusing outside of clients and things of that nature. I have three focuses. My first focus is I established an online community called the Progressive Leadership Community. It is an online presence where the focus is 100% growth, development, positive encouragement, positive conversation, positive feedback. And I love that. I started that probably less than a month ago, around about a month ago. And I love that. So that's something new for me, that's having this online presence and just being surrounded by people that enjoy adding value to other people, right? That's my mission. The other thing I'm doing is I have what we call a weekly newsletter. It's called The Collective. It's a weekly leadership brief. And ironically, it talks about different leadership topics, and it comes from a corporate America perspective versus a non-traditional volunteer-based, nonprofit-based leadership perspective as well. The same topic that we look at from two different perspectives. So that's a weekly leadership brief. Now, I also have boots on the ground. So what I have established is in 3 different communities throughout the state of New Jersey, Jersey City being one, Bridgeton, New Jersey being the other, and Lawnside, New Jersey being the third. I have what we call as a leadership community talk, where the movers and shakers, the grassroots leaders, the public figures, whomever, can come together in a forum to talk about leadership topics. It's really the mindset of taking a leadership conversation from the boardroom to the community. And the objective is for the community to invest in themselves from a leadership perspective, and then watch how that helps to shape their community. Everyone's invited. It's a free event, and I do that monthly in Jersey City, Bridgeton, and in Lawnside, New Jersey. So those are the 3 things that are up and coming and that are what I'm kind of doing now. There's more information that can be found on my website about those things and anything else that I may be involved in.
Nice. Can I post your website on the couch? Because I like to ask that. Okay, yes. I will make sure that I do that. So being that now we're getting to the end of our show, yes, we always have parting words, but I'm going to have you go almost last, Coach Mike, right before me. So okay. I do have Toya and Jordan. So they're going to start with their parting words for the day because they have their luncheon going on. And then we're going to go to Mark, then Dean, then you, and then myself. Okay? All right.
Yes. Thank you so much, Coach Mike, for finally accepting our invitation. I know your schedule has been busy. As I said before, it was God's design. You had to wait, not knowing that, because I'm part of your community, that now it has unfolded and that gave everything that we needed today. And as I say, I'm compassionate about everything that I put my time into. So you gave us some good words. And sometimes it may be not what we want, but the candor is needed, because if you're really for the mission of what you're involved in, now the paid job, we get it. So thank you. And I'm so glad that you are here today. And we're looking forward to what you have, because Coach Mike know what he's talking about. He came from corporate America, volunteer. And now, you didn't speak of it, but he's a past Grand Master for the state of New Jersey. So that right there means that you have been an effective leader. Now you've taken that and moved forward to the next. And I wish you nothing but much success. And you're going to have to come to my show too, the Butterfly Room. Because
Yes.
right now, this is where we get the clinical, we do everything. But now we want to have folks grassroots so you can heal. Because right now, everyone has a leader inside of them. And now, Jordan, what are your words?
Nothing.
Okay, she said nothing. You going to say bye to Nanny and Papa?
Bye, Mimi. Bye, Poppy.
Okay, bye-bye. We're leaving, and we hope to see you guys soon. Enjoy the rest
Okay,
of the
have
day.
a good day, Jordan. All
Have a
right,
good
Toya,
day.
thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Mark, you up. We lost your voice, Mark.
Did you get my voice back?
There you go. We got you. All right.
Just had to adjust some things on the computer. Computers have a mind of their own and everything
Yes,
like that.
they do.
Coach Mike, it has been a thorough joy hearing from you and hearing the conversation and all along those lines. And like I said, I do think that this coming Friday, you'll be the next Butterfly Room, because I produced that show as well as producing a number of other shows on Pod TV, the network that I'm part of, and everything like that. I like what you said about the work that you're doing with nonprofits. My mother was actually a founder, the first president of the Golden Leaf Foundation, which is some of the tobacco settlement money and everything like that. And she's been retired for about 10 years. But I know one of the things that she talks about, which is one of those leadership qualities, which comes down to what you were talking about, which is listening, is that too often people don't even listen to what they need to listen to, because, if you get money from a nonprofit, the nonprofit or foundation, they're expecting you to be out of that nonprofit within at least 5 to 10 years. They want you to become self-dependent and all along those lines. And a lot of times they didn't understand that. And that's why they ran into crisis, because they would get the money during the time that they would expect it and not get it and not follow the plans as they are supposed to. And that's definitely something that she did as a coach in her own way, in terms of coaching people as to how to operate within the nonprofit world. And I'm not saying that all nonprofits do that, but most of them have a limitation as to how long they want you to be on their dole and everything like that. They want you to eventually work toward independence, which is a trait of leadership. So I'll leave it at that. It's this notion that we need to understand the different qualities of leadership, including the fact of using leadership as a way to obtain independence by understanding the rules when we're going into the different rooms, whether that's a room of conversation with like-minded individuals or even non-like-minded individuals, or whether we're using our leadership skills to get money.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Dean, you up.
You know what? I do drop in, and I did drop in. Most words for Coach Mike. Thank you for coming to the couch today with Dr. Diamond. But I guess if I had last words, do what you like to do. Do what makes you happy. Do what brings joy to you. And if you do that, you won't work as hard as you think you will. But always, when you walk out your front door, it's showtime and the world is your stage. Just make sure that people are not watching the rehearsal. That's it for me. It's the six-man Dean Geronimo. Dr. Diamond, take it away.
Thank you. Coach Mike, you up. Your parting words for today.
Awesome. So my parting word, first of all, I appreciate the invitation. This conversation has been amazing for me. I thank you so very much for having me. And I'm appreciative of it. My parting words is somewhat of a coaching tip. And I kind of use this conversation anytime I'm invited or I'm talking to people that I haven't met, or in just in conversation in general. I stated earlier that the first person you have to be able to lead is yourself. Before you can help the world or help organizations, teams, whatever, you need to be able to have an impact on yourself and lead yourself. In doing so, I've come up with a a concept that helps me, and it's very simple. I call it a 3-word mantra. It's 3 words that I've developed, that I've found, that I've identified, that speaks to my values and speak to things that I want to accomplish, and it speaks to who I am and who I identify as a person, that allows me to go out and help, aid, and provide leadership, and be able to be of value to people outside of me. And my 3 words are simple. It's presence, it's courage, and it's energy. I want to have presence every time I step out there, wherever my feet are, that's where I'm paying attention to. I want to have energy because I realize that people feed off of me. So I want to make sure I'm giving them energy and that positive feedback that they need. And I have courage because I don't believe in fear. I don't believe in fear. I welcome it. And in the absence of fear, you can't have courage. So those are my 3 words. So I'll leave with this amazing audience and everything we've talked about today. Find your 3 words. And when things get tough, when things get challenging, as they will inevitably happen, then you use those 3 words to give you your baseline, to give you your anchor, and to bring you back to center so that you can keep pushing through. So that's all I have. I thank you so much. And this has been an amazing experience.
Thank you for joining us on the couch. And I hope in the future to see you again on the couch. We would love to catch up with you and get, the updates of your 3 accomplishments that you have just put in place. And you're doing them all at the same time, but, it is warranted and needed. So I thank you for that. And, to our audience of On the Couch, look forward to Coach Mike coming back with us again as his schedule permits. So thank you. And I'm going to have you in the back studio while I begin to give my last words as well. So again, thank you all for joining us on the couch today. And I hope you did learn a lot from Coach Mike. He brought some wealth of information to us, leadership, the different parts of leadership. So those of you that are in leadership, I hope you took something from what he was telling you today, how to develop people, how to understand yourself first. Put yourself first, figure out who you are, the who am I. He talked about values. What are your values? Because you have to remember what you give out is what you're going to get back. So if you got this energy that's rough, tough, cut off, dismissive, you're going to get that energy back from those that you are leading. Remember, leading is also teaching. So if you're teaching people, teach them to become what they want to become, which is possibly a leader like you. So keep that in mind. So remember those things. He also talked about developing your own 3 words. I have my own: peace, love, and tranquility. As you know, I end my show in that way. So remember to take care of yourselves. And I hope that you take a lot from what you received today. Take it, utilize it as a tool. Remember, his website will be posted on the couch. And, you can always reach out to us for topics that you would like us to talk about. We had a wonderful day here with Coach Mike. And again, we hope to see him again. You all take care of yourselves. Peace, love, and tranquility. And we'll see you again on the couch. Take care, everybody.
Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of On the Couch. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation and found it as enlightening and inspiring as I did. Remember, the stories and experiences we share here are just the beginning of a much larger journey. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, look for the notification on Facebook, and find us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us keep the conversation going and reach more listeners just like you. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep the dialogue alive. Peace, love, and tranquility. Take care, and we'll see you on the couch.